Hi again then guys, and welcome to episode 32 of B-Road Ballers, the review series for Gran Turismo's pretty strong selection of hot hatches. It is to be noted overall that this is one of the biggest review series I will have ever done. Not necessarily the biggest that I'll ever do, but certainly one of the biggest, because Gran Turismo does, it has to be said, have a very good selection of hot hatches. They do have most of the main models. Now, of course, you can always improve it. You could have more like the Vauxhall Astra VXR, more of the Seat Cupra models, etc. But the selection that we do have is pretty respectable. It's a pretty strong lineup. And the newer models of the hot hatch range tend to be some of the best in that regard. They tend to have the highest power outputs, they tend to be the quickest in a straight line, and they tend to be the obvious choices that people go for, which is understandable because of their desirability and also the fact that for the most part they do tend to be premium models. Cars like the Meganes, the Golf R, the Scirocco R, the Focus STs, etc. And in the case of this model, this is a newer shape machine. It's the Megane RS. And the funny thing about the styling of this model is, from when this car first came out, it always struck me personally as being a very similar machine to Volkswagen's Scirocco, especially in its high-performance version. The Scirocco R or the Megane RS were always very similar to me. They're both front-wheel drive. They both have similar specs, similar performance, and they both, to me anyway, look very similar. They're both hot hatches which could almost be classed as coupes as well as hot hatches. Now, they are hot hatches first and foremost, of course, but they have a shape which could very easily slip into being a coupe instead of just a hot hatch. And that's not a bad thing by any means. It gives them a sleek profile, makes them very stylish and desirable. The Megane is a reasonably popular model. People, from what I've seen, tend to go for the Clio RS rather than the Megane. But for sheer power, this Megane is the strongest offering that you can get from Renault in the hot hatch class. It even has significantly more power than the Clio V6, which is pretty impressive. It's powered by a 2-litre turbo engine, it's front-wheel drive, as you'd expect from a high-performance Megane, and it puts out a seriously hefty 538 horsepower. Now, that's not the most powerful of hot hatches, but that is up there with the best of them. It also puts out a stonking 451 foot-pounds of torque, which is serious territory, especially for a front-wheel drive car. The problem with that is it can cause heavy steering, rampant wheel spin, and excessive torque steer, having that much torque and power in a front-wheel drive car, but we'll get more to that in a second. As far as weight, it's actually pretty good. It's not the lightest of hot hatches, but considering how new it is and its size, it's certainly not a small car, the weight is actually very respectable. It weighs 1,136 kilos, which is actually really good. As far as horsepower per tonne, it puts out 474, which is certainly nothing to shake a stick at. That is seriously good for a hot hatch of any type, let alone a modern one. That puts it on par with even some sports cars, which is, again, very impressive for a Renault and also for a hot hatch in general. As far as value for money, well, the value for money, in my opinion, on this car is through the roof, because it only costs 38,000 credits for a start. So right off the bat, that makes it cheaper than a lot of the other hot hatches of a similar kind of spec. But the reason why I'd say it's so good for value for money is because not only is it cheaper than those cars, but it has a fully tuned PP of 559. Now, regardless of whether or not it's truly competitive at that level, having that kind of capability of tuning from your hot hatch for just 38,000 credits is fantastic value for money as far as I'm concerned. Even if it's rubbish at that PP level, just knowing that your hot hatch can be tuned to that level immediately puts it so far ahead of so many of the other hot hatches that are on the game. Now, as it happens, in some ways it can actually back up that PP level, because it has a top speed of around 230 miles per hour, and the acceleration is very good. Now off the line, the huge torque and power does cause quite a bit of wheel spin, so don't expect it to launch like a Golf R32, but mid-range and top-end performance is very strong. This car is very powerful once it gets the draft off of a quicker car, and it can easily draft well over 270 if you have long enough gears. Not only does it have the aerodynamics and the gearing, but it also has the power to allow it to do that comfortably. So as far as hot hatches go, it's quite a monster. As far as handling, it's good, especially for a hot hatch of its size, but you do need to be careful, because with so much power and so much torque, it can very easily be a very heavy car, especially around twisty, tight corners. It's very prone to wheel spin. Careful throttle control is essential in the Megane RS. But on wide open tracks, such as potentially tracks like the Le Mans, it's excellent, especially within the hot hatch class. And for value for money, it's great. It's also to be noted that it is inclined to lift its tail off of the ground under braking, which you do need to be a bit careful of. But that's it for this episode overall. I'll see you guys next time, and as always, thanks for watching.